Right, we have got a special edition of Just Local. Because on Monday evening, Panorama did an behind the scenes estate agent expose on a couple of agents, and Bridget said, why don't we put some questions to you, Matt, on what was in the show and see what the difference can be between businesses, and obviously get some of our take and thoughts on what was shown on the Panorama expose. So Bridget, I'll hand over to you this time.
This will be fun. So Matt, obviously the Panorama programme last night made for some really uncomfortable viewing for those of us, especially in the estate agency world. So what was your initial reaction last night to watching that, leading this estate agency business?
I think there was areas of it or elements of it that didn't surprise me, if I'm honest with you, because we, in the industry, we know that these do happen. Like these items that were shown, they do happen. So there was part of it was an online agent was really pushing a lot of pressure on their negotiators and their staff to look for price reductions after they listed homes, which we are well aware of was taking place. And there's also obviously another brand, a big corporate brand, that was seen and shown as working really quite closely with their clients that had seen their mortgage advisor as a priority. And there are some forceful tactics out there being used, and we are aware of it in our marketplace. So it was uncomfortable, probably more uncomfortable for sellers that might be on the market at the moment. Like, even if they are on with those brands, they may be quite concerned about what are they in for. That might be something they're worried about.
So Matt, can you just explain to us what the process is when an offer is put forward on one of our properties at Nicol Co? Because last night Panorama showed a lot of confusion around favouritism towards what they were calling hot buyers. So can you explain what that is and how we do things differently? So
hot buyers, there's different categories for hot buyers. We deem a hot buyer as someone who's proceedable, so active and proceedable. But the Connell's part to the show yesterday was showing that a hot buyer on their board in the kitchen is a buyer that is in a proceedable position but is going to use their mortgage advisor. That was the big bit for them, that it was going to earn them more commission because they were going to use their mortgage advisor to proceed with the purchase. And going back to the question about what happens when an offer comes in, whether it's a hot buyer or a normal buyer, the due diligence from our point of view is checking that buyer's proceedability, so their position to proceed. If they have a chain, we have to go back through the agent that they've sold with to see what that chain looks like. Very often we actually have to call down the chain ourselves because we don't get enough information from the buyer's estate agency business brand. We don't get enough information, so we have to go down and just do a thorough check to make sure everyone is in the position that we think they should be. And sometimes we found out information that other people didn't know, which is another episode on its own probably. But in terms of the person's proceedability in terms of finances, they will often tell us that they have seen a mortgage advisor. We don't enforce that they must come and see our mortgage advisor. Some agents and those on the show, they are really quite firm on wanting people to come and see their mortgage advisor. But we do need to know they have got a mortgage agreement in principle. So we do need to know they've gone that far to be able to check that out, because there's no point in us putting an offer forward to our client, which might sound fantastic, that may not be something they could actually proceed on. So we have to do our financial checks. Deposit, we need to know proof of deposit, and we also need to know they're in a position where if they are successful, that their bank or building society would lend them the money they need alongside their deposit to be able to purchase. And yes, whilst we'd like to qualify and check with our mortgage advisor, and this isn't a holier than thou type appointment today where I'm going to kind of say that we're the best in the world, we would still want people to speak to our mortgage advisor. We can't enforce it, but it would give us that comfort, because sometimes a buyer will only tell a mortgage advisor what they think they need to hear. They'll keep something back, and then actually as the purchase starts going through, that information about a credit card that's still in the background or something like that comes to light, and chains can collapse as a result of it. So we do like people to speak to our mortgage advisor where possible, because it just gives us that comfort that people have been financially qualified by people that we know independently can trust. But it's not something that gets forced, which I think the issue with the Panorama show is that people may now have the whole concept that anyone that you try and see if they're related to the estate agency business is going to be like telling the agent what goes on in the background. It doesn't happen that often. I doubt it happens in many Connell's branches, if I'm honest with you, but clearly with the 6 weeks of undercover reporting that was taking place, it came to light that it was a tactic of members of staff to try and find that information out.
Yeah. One of the other areas that came up as an area of concern was overvaluing properties just to get them on the books. And this is something that, we've talked about seeing in the marketplace. So what do you think about companies that go out there and massively overvalue properties just to get them on the books and then slash the prices a week later?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, because I'm sure not every case is done on purpose, but it does feel like when we go out to some market appraisals that the other agents that have been out to appraise at the same time haven't done their homework, don't have the local knowledge. It could be an underhanded tactic that they were just trying to list. And clearly, again, the Panorama exposed a business that had a tactic behind list it and then work it out afterwards, which is, for anyone who's selling, something they must be very frustrated with. It's certainly when it's a brand that get to be charging up front. So you are financially committed to that agent first. If they don't sell it, you've still lost that money. That's the way that business works. Whereas we don't actually earn a fee unless we do complete on the property. So we're an industry actually where a lot of people have it really good. If you're selling a home, all the risk is with the estate agent until such time as they actually do the job for you. But going back to the point about that, list it and then price reduce it, we see properties go to the market, even ones that we haven't been out to value, and you just think, how are they going to pitch it at that price? The massive negative to it, and this is the one thing that sellers don't realise at the point when they've seen the person in the smart suit and been told all the stuff they want to hear, is it's really limiting their chances of selling at all, or selling for anywhere close to what they should have sold for. Because if you pitch it £25,000 higher than it should be on the market for, if after 6 weeks, 8 weeks, that agent has broken you down, you've then done that price change to where it probably should have been pitched at the beginning, it probably will, in many people's eyes, have gone stale. It will have gone to that point where it's not popular anymore. It's becoming almost like white noise amongst other properties on portals, and people then kind of just dismiss it out of term. And that's really disheartening, because you're then almost like chasing down the market. House prices have only gone up by about 2% this year. But if the house prices continue to go up and your house price has to reduce and keep reducing, you're actually then going to sell for a lower price than you should have done, buy back in at the market at a higher price than you had to. And it doesn't win for anyone. The thing about the Panorama was how one agent is actually paying commission to their staff to get price reductions. That blows my mind. I mean, we do price
doing that?
Well, it shows that there may well be a tactic behind it. They realise that they have an issue where the valuations are inflated. They are winning instructions for the wrong reasons. There's not winning it through service or, the client's belief that the agent's the right person for them. They're winning it because of a price tag that sometimes the vendor can be pushing for the price. Let's be honest. Like, some vendors want their house to be worth more than the others. We have that often. And we do price realignments ourselves. Sometimes we've tried it at a higher price, felt that it could get it, but it just hasn't happened. But you've got to get that balance right between what is, based on comparable evidence, the right thing to do, and obviously what they were exposing yesterday is what is a tactic that some agents adopt just to list everything they can and then work them down eventually.
So what makes Nicol Co different, and how can people buying or selling with you feel reassured?
That's a good question. What makes us different? I mean, obviously we've got proven track record. We've been trading for 16 years in October, so we aren't just popped up overnight. We haven't just come off the back of a big marketing campaign. We've been here. We've kind of proved our worth. We're UK Sales Agency of the Year 2024, which is, and last night in Panorama they confirmed there's 24,000 estate agents in the UK, and so we were picked out to be the best UK sales agency out of all of those, which hopefully for anyone listening will give them some comfort. But I think genuinely the staff care, and I've just come up from the office downstairs, conversations they're having with their clients, they're not comfortable conversations sometimes because they're telling the client what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. So I think the way that they approach it, and that's the way I've worked as well in the business, is you kind of almost got to be the friend of the person selling and advise them based on that. So if I was trying to sell your house for you, Bridget, if I feel that the offer that we've got for you is the best possible price and we've pushed every single button we could and done everything we can, you need to hear that, because you're going to make a decision. You might say, no, Matt, I'm still not happy. I'm still not going to accept it. And I'll carry out your wishes. We'll work on your behalf. We're not going to force you to do something you don't want to do. But we've both got to feel like we've done the best we could have done in that situation. Our success, we don't win every instruction. We do lose quite a few instructions, if I'm honest with you, possibly because our valuation is lower than others have said. That's fine, because actually there's a statistic out there at the moment that 52% of the things that list will exchange, but therefore 48% of the things that list won't exchange. So there's a kind of almost a flip of the coin as to what's going to actually go through or not. So if we don't get first bite of the cherry, we may well be there second time, like be the next agent that gets called out. And I think that's where, again, we can kind of, with our marketing team, with everything that we offer, we can, from a property that's gone stale, quiet, gone cold in the market after 12 weeks of being on, we can give it a fresh approach, new angles, drone photography, videography, reels, great social media, all those things. We can just throw a lot more at it. And we talk about bells and whistles as standards, like that's the way that we work. If it's a new instruction, first time it's ever hit the market, it's going to get great exposure. If it's a property coming to the market for the second time, it's been on with another agent, we'll get more eyeballs on it still. They don't need to feel like all their hopes have gone. Like we will get more eyeballs on it.
So following this Panorama show, what questions should the public be asking their agents, especially sort of after watching all of this and potentially having some concerns?
If you really want to get granular, and everyone's going to have different things that are important to them, but I would say, what is the agent success rate? So this podcast may be listened to up north. It doesn't have to be in our Worcestershire area, but what is the agent success rate? Can they actually physically show you how many properties do they list and how many of those go through to an exchange or completion? Because that is the job that we're employed to do. Of course, we'll try and get them as much as possible. We're going to try and do that, take the stress out of it, get it through in the quickest timescale possible. But realistically, how many of those properties they list are they going to get exchanged? There's a statistic came out the other day, and our numbers are fantastic. I think we're about 76%, 78%, and the average locally is 62%. So there's a massive chasm between what gets listed and what exchanges versus what an average agent would do. Questions you could ask: have they got buyers for it? I suppose it's a very big, bold question, but like, could they actually give you names there and then of people they think they've got for that property? And I know from my days, I used to go out with a list of names that I thought would be interested. Of course, at the time of going out there, I'd have an idea of value. Once I get in through the door, I'll have a better idea of value. But I would start thinking before I even arrived, who are those buyers that would be interested in that property? You've got to also make your point in terms of what you're looking for in an estate agent. And most agents don't have the way to ask that question. But if you've got concerns, if you've sold before and you were let down because the agent didn't do a great chain check, ask the questions. Say, Bridget, you've come out to value my property. Can you just tell me how you go through sales progression and what will you do to check my chains firm and all those bits and pieces? Because as a seller, you're going to want to hear that information is going to be there and supportive and obviously going to solve the problem that you've got.
Okay, so here's a hard question then, Matt. Do you incentivise your staff to push certain services like conveyancing and mortgage advisors?
We do. As I said, this wasn't going to be a holier than thou type setup, but we do. We employ, I feel, some of the best people locally in this industry, and our staff retention is superb, but you do have to offer incentives for staff. The place that we're coming from, though, when we're doing conveyancing referrals and financial services, they're not linked to us as those other businesses were. So from the Purple Bricks point of view, they make a very, very small commission. So that's why they're so keen to get people to use their conveyancing, because they charge £1,000, £1,200 up front, which we as a business wouldn't be able to continue trading if that's what we were charging. So they're trying to make essentially double their commission by referring to their conveyancing services, which I think is why they're pushing so hard. And also the fees are so high with their conveyancing as a result. When it comes to financial services, again, yes, we do refer to mortgage advisors. We have independent mortgage advisors. They're not employed by Nicol Co, so we don't have that kind of connection like you probably saw with the kind of Connell's mortgage advisors as well. But where my staff are coming from when they're doing a referral to our mortgage advisor is, let's check that you have got the best deal. Because a lot of people will go and see their bank or their building society and they'll be very loyal to their brand because they don't like shopping around. They don't like to have their time taken up looking at other options. And having an independent advisor, we've got 3 that work for us. When someone speaks to them, they're actually speaking to 92 lenders in one go. And so I can't see a negative to that. Go back to your question, why do we pay our staff commission for that? Because if the person goes on to have a first appointment with our mortgage advisor that then goes on to sign up their mortgage with our mortgage advisor, we as a business receive a commission. We receive a referral fee from the mortgage advisors we recommend, and therefore we do give our staff some of that commission. And I don't have any problems with that. I think it means that we have very, very good staff, like quality staff, who ultimately are great negotiators, which again probably has a knock-on effect. It's a positive for our sellers because we can negotiate on their behalf. We're not doing this for buy. And this, I think, was the thing that came out in the Panorama Exposé last night. You felt like Connells were very interested in their buyer who was going to buy the house, as opposed to their seller's result, which is the best possible price. And I'm not digging in out on Connells, because there's probably other agents that do it as well when they've seen their mortgage advisor, but it was that extra commission they were going to get from the mortgage that was the big swing for them, as opposed to how an agent should really work, which is make sure that it's for the seller's best interests. There may be situations where we recommend to our client to really consider, do they want to sell to that person that's in a chain of 10 that's willing to pay 5,000 more versus a chain of 2 but at the asking price. And sometimes that, I go back to my conversation earlier when I was saying we have to be that friend. I need to be able to look you in the eyes and go, Bridget, I know £5,000 is a big thing, but actually I would rather get your sale through, and you've said you need to get moved by such and such, so this is your best option. Sometimes you have to have that really honest chat and go, if it was me in your situation, that's what I'd be doing. Don't know how I got there off you asking whether we pay commission. We do pay commission though, that's the straight answer.
So it's really about ensuring that it's in everybody's best interest in terms of the chain. So if we are going to refer somebody to a mortgage advisor, how can they be sure that it's in their best interest and not in our best interest?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people will have this doubt now. They probably didn't before Monday evening at 8 p.m. because they wouldn't have thought about it as being a conflict of interest, which is ultimately the way it came across on Panorama. I don't think I can give everyone complete comfort. Ultimately, they're still going to have their doubts about the process. All they can do is trust that we do recommend mortgage advisors that we would do business with ourselves. And we obviously have to have an insight into their integrity for that. So one of our mortgage advisors I've used from all of my purchases whenever I purchase, which I think should give a lot of people comfort, because they're not like based in our offices. They don't sit behind us. They're not in a meeting room always. They attend our meeting rooms for the appointment and then they're off again. There's not that kind of connection where they're out chatting to us all the time about people's finances. And I think that's, again, what kind of was the concern from the Panorama show, that they showed a conversation being had twice, actually, one from the undercover reporter and then one filmed by the undercover reporter of the member of staff making these calls to the advisor. I think the advisor did well not to actually answer the question. I think he felt probably under pressure, but again, he probably showed quite a bit of professionalism there, not to go into anyone's finances behind their back. Panorama made out like he had, but he hadn't. He just said that it's not going to be comfortable for them to be able to proceed with their onward purchase based on the offer they received, which I think was actually probably a positive. I think Panorama tried to make that look a bit worse than it actually was.
It was made to look like a major breach of GDPR. I mean, what processes do we have in place here at Nicol Co to ensure that didn't happen?
Well, ultimately, our systems are locked down. So obviously, we have a computer system that our mortgage advisors don't have access to. And whilst we can book into their calendar, we can't see the appointments. We don't see their system to show income from anyone. We don't know what their affordability is. After a mortgage appointment's taken place, if they've said that they're registered looking up to 350, the advisor will confirm they can proceed up to 350, but that's as much as we would know. And if they said, in fact, mortgage appointment went well, they've said they can now go up to 360 based on the figures I've told them, we'll update our system to make sure that we've got the correct figure reflected in our system. From a GDPR point of view, that's probably the best part about it, that we are two separate entities. We're not one company. And I just know from the way that we work, we just don't ask those questions. We just don't get into that kind of nitty gritty. It is, as the Panorama show is trying to expose, it's very naughty out there sometimes. It can be very, very naughty in the background. But thankfully, with an independent business, I feel like our integrity is intact, and that doesn't go on here. So thank you ever so much for putting me on the spot. As we said, we recognise that the Panorama show was set up to catch out people, but also to expose what goes on in the estate agency. I'm sure it's a rare occasion that some of these things happen, but it was quite worrying, I think, for a lot of people, and possibly people who are on the market or considering going on the market, to see this going on in the background. All you can really do is be careful with people that are coming out to value your property. Try and ask the right questions, go off recommendations, look for Google reviews. All of those things will help for you to make an informed decision. Thank you, Bridget, for quizzing me on Just Local. And we'll see you again soon on the next episode.